Daf Dalet of Torah Ohr, welcome. And today we'll learn the Maimer V'chol Ha'am. This concludes Parshas Yisro and the discussion about the achievement of Matan Torah. So the pasuk says, "V'chol Ha'am רואים es הקולות ואיזו pidim," that all the people who were standing at Har Sinai at Sinai saw the voices and the flames, v'skal shofar, and the sound of the shofar. So the first question in the Maimer is, why did we need a shofar at Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah? Did we need some sort of musical accompaniment? And if so, who aren't there better instruments than a shofar? So what is the shofar? What does the shofar accomplish? So simply, shofar either instills fear, like it says, if a shofar is blown in a city, will the people not tremble? And we see, in fact, that at Matan Torah, the people did tremble. There was this sense of fear and awe and trembling. Also, shofar comes from the word shaper מעשיכם, to beautify and improve our behavior. So this idea of beautifying is related to pleasure, to bring pleasure, and that's also accomplished through shofar. That shofar brings down pleasure, Hashem's pleasure in creation, and this is like it says, "Ki imcha mekar chaim," that with you is the source of life and the source of pleasure, and we bring down Hashem's pleasure through shofar. Next paragraph of v'biaor. So let's ask a more sort of fundamental question, perhaps. Why was the Torah only given when it was given? There were many great tzaddikim before the Torah. There was Adam Rishon, Chanoch, Mr. Shelach, and many other tzaddikim. Avraham kept the whole Torah already before it was given, just that he kept it spiritually. So why did the Torah wait until after the Exodus, and to the times of Moshe, to be given actually with all the physical mitzvahs? So let's look at Avram's Avodah, the Avram's spiritual service, and then we'll contrast that with Matan Torah and why he couldn't have Matan Torah. So Avraham was in this state of constant elevation and constant expanding of his love of Hashem. It says that he was going to Negba. Negba is the right, because the south, when you're facing east, the south is the right. So he was going towards the right, meaning the side of love. And he was in the state of rotzi, of yearning for Hashem, but always with a shuv as well. Rotzi means the yearning and going up, and shuv means, okay, well, what should I actually do with that practically, bring that down? And he was also, similarly with Avraham, it says he was holoch v'naseya, going and traveling, which represents the going up and down. Just that Halech v'naseya is even a higher level than Rotzi and Shuv, but the same basic idea, that he's jumping up in yearning and love for Hashem, and then bringing it down, making it practical. So now it says to understand more about this concept of Rotzi and Shuv. So let's look at another pasuk. Hashem makes peace in his high places, which is, we end Shemayin Esrei with this, and it's a benching, and the Gemara says that there's the Michal, the ministering angel of water, and Gabriel, ministering angel of fire, and Hashem makes peace between them, and then lets the fire and water be together. So what does this mean? We're talking about spiritual angels. There's no fire and water in the spiritual worlds. So fire and water spiritually would mean Rotzi and Shuv. Fire is Rotzi, it's this yearning, it's to go up to Hashem. And then water is the Shuv that's poured down and made practical. And Hashem makes peace between them. They have Rotzi and Shuv together. Like it says that in Sefer Yitzirim, Rotz libcha shuv lecha, that if your heart is running, return to one. So the first step is the heart is running, and this is through reflecting and thinking about how Hashem is the only real thing, that Hashem is totally beyond and unlimited, and only a ray of Hashem is what enlivens heaven and earth. from the sphere of Malchus, but Hashem himself is beyond being mamale, beyond filling each world according to its particular level, and even beyond Sofer, beyond being surrounding the world, is just totally beyond, is an Ein Sof and unlimited. And therefore, when we realize this is the only real thing, so it wells up within us, and we're consumed with this yearning and love for Hashem, and that's the fire. And that's like that's why the chayes are they've got this rotzi and they're burning like a flame. That they just want to be consumed and one with Hashem. But then there's the second step, the shuv, and that is the water. And the water comes from chachma, unlike the main spheres at work with Ratzi is the midas, the emotional traits, whereas with shuv it's chachma, and chachma is realizing as well. It's from the same thing, realizing how Hashem is totally beyond, and therefore we have no idea. And it's totally beyond us. What do we know? What are we looking for? Let's just do what Hashem wants. So this is the idea that the fire and water don't put each other out, that even after the Rotze, we still can go back down to Shuv to do what we need to do. And even after the Shuv, it wells up within us again, this yearning and this thirst for Hashem. And like it talks about in Sefer Yetzirah, fire coming out of water and water coming out of fire. And like the Gemara in Yuma discusses that there are different types of fires. There's Eish Cheles, a fire which eats, which consumes, and Eish Sheis, a fire that drinks, which is a regular fire, consumes. It eats, it burns something down, so it takes in whatever items are there. Then there's the fire of the fever that drinks, that the person who's sick, he only drinks, doesn't eat. So there's different types of fires. So this was what Avraham was doing. He was alternating between fire and water, and neither one was putting out the other one. Next paragraph, Achinei. Now, this was all Avram's spiritual avodah. But for many people, this is too much for them. It's beyond them to have this passionate love, and then for Hashem just wanting to be subsumed within godliness. And therefore, they were given the Torah. The Torah is another path to this fire and water, this avodah of elevating to Hashem and then coming down to bring Hashem down into this world. So the Torah mitzvahs give us another path for that, which is more something within the capacity of most people. Unlike the Avram's avodah, that's only for a select few. So the Torah is like water because it starts off in a high spiritual place, but then it comes down to actually guide us in this physical world. Now, when Rabbi Akiva gave a warning to the other three rabbis who went with him into paradise, into the deeper secrets of the Torah, he told them, don't, when you see this spiritual marble above, don't say water, water, because it's not actually water, it's actually marble. That's what the Gemara says in Chagiga. But the Alter Rebbe's just notes here that he says water, water twice, because there's two levels of water. There's Chachma is water, and then there's that's called Yodilah, the higher Yod, and then there's within the Malchus and practical mitzvahs, that's the Yud Tata. So and even when it comes into practical mitzvahs, so then through Malchus, so it says Malchus that Hashem's Malchus, Hashem's kingship is the Malchus, the kingship of all worlds. So it still says your Malchus, meaning that it comes from even the lower Malchus as it descends into worlds. It still comes from Hashem himself. So this is the mitzvahs, the 248 mitzvahs, that all of them are about bringing Hashem into the practical world and bring down Hashem's light. And like we say, when we do a mitzvah, so that you have sanctified us through the mitzvahs, that every mitzvah is a way of bringing Hashem's light upon us, sanctifying us. And so that is the water within mitzvahs. Then we also have the fire. and the gvura within mitzvahs and Torah, which is the limits that every mitzvah has to be done in a particular way. A sukkah can't be less than 10 tvachim high, can't be more than 20 amas high. And the same thing with tzitzis, have to have 8 strings. The strings have to not be cut off, and all the details of the mitzvahs. So that we see in Torah that there's both a fire and water. And then through our Veda, so then that elicits a response from Hashem and Esrus L'Eila, an arousal from above, and that we, like Avraham, are also halach when I say we're going up and down through our Veda, connecting to Hashem and bring Hashem down into this world. And this is what we were given at Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, the ability to rise up and elevate, to connect to Hashem, Ein Sof, unlimited godliness, and then bring that down through our practical mitzvahs. Okay, so now we've explained why we needed Matan Torah and Avraham didn't. But still, if Avraham was also doing this avodah of halach and asayah, he was just doing it spiritually, why should he miss out on Matan Torah and the spiritual gift that Matan Torah came with? If he was doing all the mitzvahs spiritually, so why should he miss out on doing them physically? Next paragraph, lahavin zeh. Why and how do our mitzvahs accomplish so much? How do they bring down Hashem's light into this world? The mitzvahs are done with physical things, with the inanimate, or with plant life, or with animals. So, for example, we have with karbonos, you have the carbon mincha, the flower offering, that's from the plants. And so with the actual karbonos are from animals. The tefillin is also made from leather from animals, and parchment from animals. So this was all part of Klippa's Noga, and now we're making it holy. So how do the karbonos become a reach nechayach Hashem, a pleasing aroma for Hashem? And like reach is the idea of halal, going up to Hashem, and nechayach comes from the word to bring down, hamshacha down, bring down Hashem's light into this world, and that Hashem should be revealed in this world. And similarly with mitzvahs in general, how do they accomplish this? To connect us with Ohr and with Hashem's unlimited light, and then bring that down into this world. So, like we've explained previously, the lower life forms in this world have their source in Olam HaTayor, the world of chaos, which is a spiritual world where there's great light and spiritual energy of Hashem, only that it's the light is too much for the containers, the Ohr is too much for the kalim, and each sphera won't work together. Each sphera feels that it is the only path, and therefore it crashed. And sparks of that godliness descended into this world, and because although now they're hidden within impurity, within klippa, but once they're revealed as to be really godly light, so they're even more powerful than the regular godliness that we have manifest in our own souls. So that's why the mitzvahs can lift us so high. Like it says that when we eat, we should know that we're not sustaining ourselves just from the bread, but Hashem Adam, but we're living from the expression of Hashem's mouth. That's how we're living. What that means is that in the food there's an expression of Hashem's mouth, of godliness. And it's actually more powerful, a higher level godliness than what we have inside ourselves, and that's why it sustains us. So now, although there's this great benefit of eating and a great benefit of being involved in the physical in general, that it has these sparks from beyond what the sparks of godliness from beyond what we have ourselves. But at the same time, we would be more refined without eating, because when we eat, it makes us more coarse. Like even when a tzaddik eats, it still has a negative influence in terms of becoming less spiritually refined. And that's why we see that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was on the mountain for 40 days to receive the Torah, he didn't eat regular food because it would make him more coarse. He had to be at the highest, most refined spiritual level. He didn't even eat man, which is the heavenly food, the food of angels, because even that would be spiritually detrimental. So that's why Avraham wasn't able to deal with physical mitzvahs, because being involved in the physical, it's spiritually detrimental. It makes a person coarse. And so therefore he had to stay, in order to keep his spiritual level intact, he had to stay within the spiritual. Only after going through the difficulty of the slavery in Egypt, so that has the nature, the challenges and difficulties have the nature of refining a person, and similarly with refining a nation. It was like when you put in order to refine gold or silver, you put it in a furnace, and then you can take out the gold, and it separates from the impurities. So that's what happened with us through being slaves in Mitzrayim, that then now we're able to deal with the physical and we're able to take the spiritual sparks without becoming more coarse through the physical. To a greater degree than Avraham would be able to do, coming before the Shibud Mitzrayim, before the subjugation in Egypt. And like it says that in the Torah that my arrows will be finished off against Am Yisrael as a punishment, but it's still, the arrows will be finished, but they won't be finished. So in other words, that we will go through difficulty and go through punishment, but at the end we'll come out strong. Or like the leech that it's sucking out blood from the person, and then it says that this can cause it to die straight away. So what's the idea? That a clipper is trying to take, but what clipper is trying to take, but then clipper doesn't last. So through a look at this leech that was hurting us in Egypt, so what ended up happening is that leech dies, that we become more refined, and the world in general becomes more refined, and then we can deal with physical mitzvahs and bring down Hashem's unlimited light through the mitzvahs. And this, although the Avos also brought karbanos, which are physical animals, but still they only ever brought the carbon ola, which is totally burnt for Hashem, but they weren't able to bring a shlamim or other karbanos which they ate, because they weren't able to integrate the physical with bring down the holy and the godly within the physical like we can. Also, they only ever brought animals, but not flower offerings that come from tzemeach, vegetation, which is lower than the animal kingdom. This also explains a question. We see that many of the great tzaddikim did not keep all the mitzvahs properly. We see that Yaakov married two sisters, which is against the Torah. Amram married his aunt, which is forbidden by the Torah. The reason is because they were before the slavery of Mitzrayim, going through that whole subjugation, and therefore they were only once that had been completed were they able to do mitzvahs in the physical way. Until then, they only did it in the spiritual way. And the same will be with Mashiach, that before Mashiach, we've gone through all this the galus of Edom, the exile of Edom, and that has been like this furnace that has purified us and will allow us to be even more refined with Mashiach. And where it says the Molar, it's there, the whole world will be filled with knowledge of Hashem. And it is only possible through going through the galus. And the same thing on an individual level. When a person has difficulties and challenges, those difficulties make the person more refined. And so when he does mitzvahs afterwards, the mitzvahs are able to lift him closer to Hashem and bring down more godliness into the world and into his will. Next paragraph, V'nachzer. So now, so we've explained that Torah allows for the avodas of Eish and Mayim, fire, yearning, going up to Hashem, and Mayim, bringing down Hashem's light into this world, and that they can be both together without the fire putting out the water or the water putting out the fire. Because in order to have both together, you have to introduce a light and energy which is beyond both of them. And that was the shofar. because the shofar is blown from the mouthpiece, which is narrow, and then the sound comes out from the other side, which is wide, which is the concept of mina meitza karasi ka anani v'merchav ka, that from the distress, from the constraints, I call out to Hashem, and Hashem answered me on b'merchav, in a way of broadness and with things being good. So this is like the shofar, from the narrow side to the broad side. So mina meitza is where things are constrained and where we don't understand. Like it says that that no thought can understand Hashem, and together with that, he also said brings down Hashem's pleasure. But still, although that's true, but it's only, it says, we quote at the beginning of the that with you is the source of life, meaning that the source of life and source of pleasure is just with you, with Hashem. But with implies this state of bittul to Hashem. So the main focus with the shofar, it's this state of bittul, of self-nullification, and calling out to Hashem from that state. And it says karasi kai, call out to ka, to Hashem yud kei, which yud is chachma and hey is bina. Chachma is just having the flash of the idea, and bina is where you're actually able to meditate and reflect on this understanding, this idea of Hashem. And so Chachma is like at the beginning Aden, and then it expands into Gan, like we explained elsewhere, that Aden is like the source, and then it expands further through the river, and then ultimately coming through this state of bittul. We come to and realizing that we don't understand, but then still trying to meditate and reflect about Hashem. So we come to Merchav Ka, which again it has Hashem's name Yud Kei. Now Yud Kei, there's Yud Kei at a higher level and a lower level. Like we said about the waters, the higher waters and lower waters. The higher waters is Chachma, and lower waters is Chachma within Malchus. Like Hashem's name starts with a Yud, Hashem's name Yud Kei Vav Kei, and then the name Adonai ends with the Yud, which is the Yud Tata, the lower Yud. And then we have the Hey, which Hey represents the thirst and the fire in our heart for Hashem. And in general, this is this bittul to Hashem is the Shemoneh Esrei, because with Krishma and the brachas of Krishma, that's where the emotions can be, our emotions can be expressed, of this yearning and this fire for Hashem. And about this, it says in the prophecy of Yecheskel, of the Merkava, it says that under the rakia, under the sky, the angels' wings were straight and spread out, and so this is when they're burning with a fiery love for Hashem. And that's like the Shema and the brachas of Shema. But then on top of the head is like this mighty, this awesome frost. This coldness, this frost is a state of bittul, where we're not expressed. And then it says above the rakia, there was this curl, this sound. And that's the sound of the shofar, which is the state of bittul, coming from the constraint, from the narrow, which is the state of Shemoneh Esrei. And then it says that their wings become weak because they're in this, they're in a state of total bittul, and is this total nullification. And when they're in that state, then you can have fire and water together, both the passion and the okay, what do I do with this? How do I follow Hashem's instruction, complete Hashem's plan, so that they both work together and they're one. And you don't notice neither the rotzi, nor the shuv by itself. And then from there, from this state of nullification and humility before Hashem, so from there we reach merchav, the breadth, the expansiveness, which is revelation of Hashem, to be not in a state of we of course we're still in a state of bittul, but not in a state of constraint, but rather to be in a state of expansiveness. And with this, also the pasuk in Yeshaya that Yasa Shalom Li, Shalom Yasa Li, he'll make peace for me, peace he'll make for me. This implies two levels of peace coming together, that both above, so above and below all come together as one. And this is where you have you introduce a higher level of Hashem's light. It allows opposites to come together, like we said about the fire and water coming together. Okay, so now over the page. So now we can go back to explain the pasuk. It says that the people saw three things. It says the sounds and the flames and the sound of the shofar. So kula refers to hamshacha, bring Hashem's light down. In general, the idea of sound is when you have air inside you and then you bring it down, you express it outward through speech. So this represents bringing down Hashem's light, and it's in plural because it says that the when we learn Torah properly, so it says that we merit to the Torah, which was given with 5 kolos, the 5 sounds of the Torah, because it says it says that it says water 5 times, just like with light 5 times. So the word kol 5 times, sound 5 times, just like in creation it mentions both the word mayim, water, and light 5 times. So water represents hamshacha, bringing down Hashem's light downward into this world through mitzvahs, and that's the idea of kolos. Then we have the second thing at Matan Torah. It says that there was flames. Flames is fire going up to Hashem with yearning to Hashem. And that everyone saw Hashem eye to eye, and they could see what is normally heard. In other words, what is normally beyond them. And then the third thing that it says that they saw was kol shofar, the sound of the shofar, and this represents the bittul of mina meitzar, coming from the narrow, from the distress, and which shofar also is bittul to Hashem, who's the source of tענוג, of pleasure, and from the shofar, from this state of bittul, fire and water are able to come together. Then it continues with the description of Matan Torah that Vesahar Ashen, that the mountain was smoky. So the idea of smoke is when fire connects, it has an impact on something physical. So the smoke is the remnants of that physical thing that was being burnt by the fire. So similarly, with when transforming our nefesh bahamis, our animal soul, which that comes from klipa, from the which covers over Hashem, and then we transform that into kedusha, into holiness. So then that's called smoke. The nefesh kiss, the godly soul, there's no smoke there because it's not something physical. But when that's just pure fire. But when it burns the nefesh bahamis, then there's smoke. So when the smoke happens through getting close to the fire, so it burns the physical thing. And similarly, the mountain was smoky because of the rotzi, because of the yearning of the fire to Hashem. Like we said that in Matan Torah, there was the lapidim, these flames. And together with the shuv, with the bringing down Hashem into this world, which is the idea of water, and that's the kolos, the sound, which is expressing from the inside outward. So that brought that process, and especially the flame, brought smoke. Now it's the pasuk about Matan Torah in Yisro continues that that the people saw and they trembled and they stepped back, they stood far away, they stepped backwards. So it mentions the people twice. First, it says that all the people saw the sounds and the flames and the shofar. That's talking about the Bnei Yisrael. But then the second time it says the people, it's talking about the Avraham, the others who were less worthy and came up with Bnei Yisrael when they left Egypt, and they weren't able to really experience this revelation of Hashem. They just stood from afar. So the reason that Avraham had to stand from afar is because there's two basic ways of getting excited, developing a feeling for Hashem. One is thinking about what Hashem has done for me within this world. And that was something that Avraham could appreciate, to look at nature and look at Hashem's kindness to me. So then that they could do and get excited from Hashem, about Hashem. They can look at how complex and how beautiful and wondrous his nature is. But that's all within nature. Whereas, but getting excited from the fact that Hashem is totally beyond and safe, totally unlimited and beyond us, that's not something that would talk to them. And therefore, when this revelation of Hashem as he is totally beyond, then they stood from afar. And that's why they were the ones pushing for the golden calf. And they said, we want Elikim Asher Yelchel Lefanenu, a God who will go before us, who we will see physically. They weren't able to appreciate this idea of God, a God beyond. And therefore, they weren't able, at Matan Torah, they stood from afar. Next paragraph, ve'eizo. And this is also why the mazikim, it says the negative spiritual forces, the demons, they're called mazikim, which means damages, beings who damage. At the same time, it says that these mazikim have a great spiritual capacity. So why are they called damager? It says that the mazikin, they have fear of heaven, they have yiras shamayim. So why are they called mazikin? So the difference is that malachim and the shamas that are on the side of holiness, they're in a state of bittul from thinking about Hashem's Hashem's unlimited light, and they relate to that. That talks to them. So that like the malachim, that they have such a fear that they're not able to bear it from realizing that Hashem is totally beyond. On the other hand, Klippa, they are from the worlds of separation, from the realms of separation, and Hashem being Ein Sof, being beyond, that doesn't talk to them. About them, we have the second half of the pasuk. The pasuk says, Hashem's kingship is the kingship of all worlds, that from the sphere of Malchus, that's how Hashem brings worlds into existence. In other words, not Hashem's essence, but only Malchus. And then his dominion is throughout all generations. So the first half is Hashem's Malchus, is where we accept Hashem's kingship with willingly and happily, and that's called a king. On the other hand, when we're in a state of separation, so then Hashem's not called king, it's called a moshel, which is like a dictator, that it's against their will. That's the meaning of what we say in davening, that we bless you and your name should be blessed in the mouth of all living, meaning that we bless you, if you yourself, which is Hashem, who is unlimited, whereas Yisparech Shimcha is that the others only bless Hashem's name, meaning that they don't relate to Hashem himself only to his name, which is what enlivens worlds. But what is the fact that Hashem is totally beyond worlds, that they don't relate to. But our Torah connects us to Hashem as he is beyond worlds. Okay. So this concludes the Maimer. Basically, what we've said is that why was the Torah given to us? It's because, number one, we need it, unlike Avraham, who could connect spiritually. Number two, we went through the Shibud Mitzrayim, the subjugation of Egypt, and therefore we became refined so that the physical isn't as detrimental spiritually as it used to be. And therefore we're able to connect Hashem through physical mitzvahs. And then we explain this idea of the shofar, that shofar is this state of bittul, this state of nullification before Hashem, and which allows opposites to come together, Ratzai and Shuv, the yearning upward and going up to Hashem, and Shuv bringing Hashem down into this world to all come together. But this is only with the neshamas or malachim, whereas with Erev Rav or with mazikin, with the Erev Rav, the people who sort of tagged on when the Bnei Israel left Egypt, or the mazikin, the damaging angels, the demons, so they only relate to something within their world, within nature, but they don't relate to Hashem being totally beyond, and therefore they that won't talk to them. They have to step back when that's happening. They don't relate to the idea of the shofar, the state of bittul to Hashem as he is beyond.